So there's a few things I'm going to go over in this video. I'm going to break down step by step all the things I see in this palm that stand out to me and what they mean in relation to each other as well. Because essentially that's what palmistry is. It's not just identifying a certain thing about a palm and what that means, it's what it means in relation to something else. So the first thing I notice is the short but high set thumb. The second thing I notice is this ambition line here on the Jupiter mount. That's quite a powerful little symbol in itself. The third thing I notice is this island on the headline here. It's not quite fully formed, but it is still significant. There's a bit of a bump in the road there, so I want to explain what that means. The fourth thing is actually a combination of things altogether, which is the long headline. The loyalty line there, you can see coming in from the family ring, affecting the life. Okay, and the high set Saturn mount. Now all these three things combined mean something together. The fifth thing is the matriarch line. I believe this is a matriarch line here, coming in from the side of the hand, and this is highly significant. This is the mother's influence. The sixth thing I want to mention is, in general, just the fact that we have here a many-lined hand, which shows sensitivity, anxiety, lots of thoughts and lots of emotions, perhaps ruling this person, in conjunction with the low-set Mercury, and it's not low set as such, but it is beginning to lean lower than Saturn and Jupiter, so it does have some bearing. And the fact that Mercury is a little bit distant to the rest, so that's the sixth thing I wanted to mention. And in general, this is an introvert, but a sensitive one. So generally, introverts that are very sensitive take things out on themselves. All the bad things that happens to them, they tend to take them out on themselves. The seventh thing I want to mention is this low hanging, almost angular mount of Pluto. It's very prominent, and I mean all the other sort of features of the palm are very soft and conic, rounded, with the exception of Pluto there. It's quite deep, it's quite angular, it's prominent, and that's significant there, so I'm going to get around to explaining that as well. So there's a few things to go over here. But before I go over the first thing, the thumb here, let me just get around to explaining what we're looking at here. It's a fire hand, and I think you probably already know this. It's a conic fire hand, and as I've already said, we have an introvert, someone who's very sensitive and perhaps quite an anxious person. So we have a rectangular palm. The longest finger is not more than 7 lengths of the palm's length, 7/8 of the palm's length. And this is how we determine short fingers. So we know we have a long palm and short fingers. Now, they're not the shortest of fingers for a fire hand, but they are still short. They're a little bit knotty. This person does get caught up on some of the details. However, overall, they are a doer rather than a thinker. They're a feeler. They're certainly a feeler. Not so much a thinker, but they feel quite intensely. And this might cause them to stumble a little bit. So the first thing I wanted to point out, step one really, is this short but high set thumb. Again, being a fire hand, this is quite a typical trait of fire hands. They're very, they're doers. They like to get stuck in. They like to, they're quite efficient. They're quite quick, hard workers, and they tend to sum up a situation quickly and know what needs to be done instinctively, intuitively. And this is certainly true for this person. They are highly intuitive. Again, their emotions is a sort of their rudder for life, their thermometer. It's a tool to understand how to navigate through life, and so they get a sense for things. They get a kind of clarity, a picture, um, and they pick up on what's needed, and they get to work. Now, people with long thumbs, um, they tend to they need to assess all of the facts before getting to work, whereas a fire hand, or at least a fire hand with a short thumb like this, is able to just get the job done whilst everyone else around them is still working out how to do it. So that's the benefit of having a short thumb. They're doers and they're efficient at it. They know what needs to be done. The downside really to having a short, high set thumb is that the high setness, it can steer the person to think more towards themselves rather than others. This can be a bit of a tendency. And again, when this person, something bad happens to them, as I've already mentioned, they tend to beat themselves up rather than potentially looking outwards at a situation impartially, objectively, and considering others or the ramifications. Or they tend to be quite inwards, as I've said, introverted, but self-centered at times. And I don't mean that necessarily as a bad thing, or that they're selfish. I just mean that they are quite um, inwardly focused. They think about themselves sometimes more, they're not really looking at the bigger picture, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think this person has a particular, a temper as such, but I do think if they are upset, if they are angry, if they are hurt, there is a greater tendency for this person to harm themselves than anyone else. And I do think this person is a good person, generally speaking. I think they're a good nature, and I'll get around to explaining why. Now, this ambition line here that you see rising up on the Jupiter mount, it's curious. There's so much going on here on the Jupiter mount that it's hard to really distinguish, how to break this information down. It's very difficult. But I have a feeling that it's linked to some highly traumatic experiences this person went through as a young child, around the age of about 6 to begin with. But it didn't end there, unfortunately, for this person. There was a traumatic time for this person, as I say, around this age of 6. And then you have this sort of square, and it's all tied in with this ambition here. And I believe this person's mother intervened in whatever was going on. This single traumatic event has shaped this person and caused um, a lot of difficulties. Has shaped this person psychologically and has affected every area of their life ever since. And as I say, it didn't end there, unfortunately. You can see here this ambition. Whoops. This ambition line here, it stems from, it's still linked to this event, but it's not until this person really started to gain their own independence that they set about with a feeling of, knowing what they wanted to do with their lives. And that moment where they really started to gain their independence, truthfully, it wasn't until about the age of about 24. This headline is linked with the lifeline for a very long period of time, which shows overcaution, really, anxiety, and perhaps this person was sheltered a bit too much, probably because of what happened here. And I think, as I say, the mother intervened, I believe. I could be wrong about this. I'm drawing from this here as well, which I'm going to get around to later on. I think there's a lot of influence here from this person's mother. And so I think that this ambition stems from this person's gaining of their own independence. And just before that independence was claimed, around the age of 24, 25, at 22, there appears to have been an episode of anger, as we can see some influence coming in from the inner Mars there, this place of aggression and drive and anger, and that also seems to come into contact, or at least create the beginnings of this ambition. And ambition is, linked with that motivation, that drive. And sometimes when we're in a position where we are in fear of our safety, it's anger that can turn things around. When we turn fear into anger, we turn the tables. And so I wonder if this person was subject to some sort of injustice, which would explain the sheer disappointments this person has been through at least uh, twice in their life. There's several episodes of disappointment. In fact, the heartline crashing into the life and the headline like this, when you see the headline doing the same thing, which we do see here as well. This person's been through more than just disappointment. These are events that are so shocking that they have literally, this person has yet to perhaps deal with the things that they've been with. It's perhaps delayed shock, perhaps. I mean, I'm wondering if at the time that this person had taken this picture, some time later, they began to process and perhaps became depressed afterwards, not realizing what they had been through and the severity of it. I could be wrong. This picture was taken roughly 6 weeks ago. I told them that their reading would take 3 to 4 weeks, and I'm way behind. I'm sorry to everybody, by the way, about this. So this ambition line here, there's a lot that's attached to it, quite literally, and it's prominent, it's meaningful, and I wonder if this person is fulfilling their ambition that stems from these essentially negative experiences. There was some support here at these early times in this person's life, but unfortunately, perhaps not enough, and not in the right way. Now, the third thing I wanted to mention here was this headline, and just how you can see an island which is perhaps not fully formed, but there is a dip in this person's psychological outlook. There's a period here where they change the way they think and feel. Particularly feel is a strong word, right word to use for this person. This is a feeler and a doer. And you can see an island sort of forming here, and I feel that this is a period of huge upheaval and stress, but more than that, depression, as I've just mentioned, and this is why I'm sort of following on from this. And you can see that this great period of dissatisfaction and disappointment is even, there's a line here that's sort of linked, pointing down towards um, a period of depression for this person. Now, before we move on, I should have mentioned this here, these marriage lines here, like this, rising up around Mercury, almost like a ring of Mercury. Not that that's a thing as far as I know, but it's sort of like a ring of Solomon here, but on the percussion side. I'm going to get around to explaining what this means, so let's make this number 8. So, as I say, this is depression, and it's linked to a particularly impactful and traumatic and shocking event in this person's life. Now, the fourth point I wanted to mention was the overall length of the headline, which is relatively unusual for a fire hand. I wanted to point this out in conjunction with the loyalty line and the high set Saturn mount. This was my fourth point. Sorry, let's not get these numbers mixed up. And for me, what this means is, well, firstly, the long headline is someone who is, firstly, their actions affect the lives of others, generally speaking. It's one of the signs of fame, actually, but it's also a kind of, the reason why it's one of the signs of fame is because you don't get to being successful without being almost obsessive, hard working. And that's what this kind of long headline means. It sort of means obsessive. And that's because often people with long headlines are thinking and feeling about things too much. And And I think that this is related to this event here. I think this person is thinking about what if quite a lot. What if I did this? What if that happened? I think they're thinking back a lot. I think this, where the headline travels through, directly corresponds with memory. I believe this person is in a stage in their life where they are processing, as I say, this impactful event that occurred to them. So there's certainly an element to this person at the moment where they are just continually thinking about the same thing. A long headline also shows a lateral thinker, a planner, um, someone who thinks ahead. And I do think that in this case it's a bit of both, but certainly this person is thinking back. Um, there's a bit of both going on here. And I'm just trying to understand what this square means on the inside of the lifeline, because a square on the inside of the lifeline often means imprisonment of a sort. So I'm wondering if this person was involved in some sort of potentially abusive relationship and they're now out of that and they've broken away from that. I think, and I'm trying to pinpoint it, it's very difficult with a many-lined hand, especially as a person who's as sensitive and anxious as this to read. I believe there was an incident around the age of late 20s, early 30s, where this person came away from that relationship. I could be wrong about that. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention on this fourth note, I'm just literally looking at my notes, is the loyalty line in conjunction with the long headline. A long headline is a good sign of someone who is essentially truthful. It's one of the signs of truth in the palm, as is a loyalty line like this. Now, a loyalty line is also known as, what is it also known as? But this to me looks like heartbreak. I believe this person may have gone through some sort of relationship that didn't work out as they had wanted to. There's, as I say, this what looks like a kind of imprisonment, and then you've got this little Mars line here. It almost looks like a secondary lifeline. The Mars line helps in a person get through a kind of a battle of a sorts. And then you've got this loyalty line, which is all linked. It's all linked to all these three things are linked. So it sort of shows us that this person had a very difficult time, and it fell through. It didn't work out how they wanted it to. It was an extremely difficult time. It made them angry and upset, and probably mixtures of feelings of shame and guilt involved as well. I'm wondering if this was an arranged marriage that failed due to the husband just generally being a horrible person. I could be wrong about all this. Perhaps they weren't a horrible person at all. Perhaps this person, their husband, died, and and that's why all these negative feelings are coming out. There is some anger involved, though. Certainly some anger involved here. And the other thing I wanted to mention here is the high Saturn mount here. Um, this person is certainly a very conscious person, someone who has a deep sense of right and wrong, and knows inherently what should be done in any given situation. And the three, these things together that I wanted to kind of say how they were relevant is it shows an honest and upright person, and that's the kind of major overall point I wanted to make here about the long headline, the loyalty line, and the sort of upstanding Saturn finger. These three things together do kind of corroborate and point towards someone who is a good person. And that's a very vague statement, but it's important when reading the palm. If we were to see some sort of change line that looked like betrayal, then it would give us an indication as to who is committing that betrayal in the relationship. Is it the person of the palm that you're reading, or is it their partner? These things can provide us with strong and important some circumstantial clues. Now, number 5 was this matriarch line. I believe it's a matriarch line anyway. I could be wrong about it. I think it is. So I'm going with it. Let's see where it takes me. And I do think that, as I say, there was some uh, influence from this person's mother early on in life, and I'm glad there was, because it was a horrible incident that they went through when they were very young. And I think that this is also mirrored here as well. In the fate line, we can see what looks like some sort of circle attached to a bit of an island. I don't know. It doesn't look good anyway. It doesn't look good. And we can see that the matriarch line here, this person has a strong bond with their mother, and there was an influence here to stop this potentially um, evil incident from continuing. And from then on, the fate line looks stronger. But as I say, I do believe this person has been through other things more recently, uh, or will do. So that was really what I wanted to mention here, and they have a direct influence with the changing of their fate and their career. Their mother has a huge influence in their lives, which is great news, really, because I believe without their mother, this person would have been, I don't know, a completely different person and in a completely different place, environmentally and psychologically. And I just want to point out before I move on, this is a highly loving individual. I mean, just overall here, this person really is in need and deserves a loving relationship, someone that they are just as able to provide as much love for themselves. So I'm going to get around to making my 6th point now, and this is that this is a many-lined hand. And as I say, someone that is just so sensitive and loving and in touch with their own emotions is deserving of someone who is able to understand them and reciprocate this emotional intelligence and an understanding. Someone who is, this anxious requires great support. Someone this with this a kind of a nervous disposition like this is certainly in danger of burning themselves out. This is, you know, endocrine kind of drainage here. This is adrenal fatigue, and this is likely because of this person overthinking, over worrying, over analyzing or feeling at least about the past. They're thinking about the past and the future. They're worrying about too much all at once. All that really matters is the present. And it's easy for me to say that, sure. But if you can't change something, then there is no point in worrying about it. So it's important to try and reprogram yourself to not to worry, essentially. And the overall closeness of the fingers, in conjunction here with a many-lined hand like this, the danger here is that this person is a potential harm to themselves, and that's how you see this, this adrenal fatigue here. This is how it's coming out. And so this person really requires this kind of stability and grounding from others. And I'd highly advise that this person doesn't surround themselves with with people around them who are, sort of dramatic, needless drama in their lives is not required. And that, I think, is shown here. This person already knows this. Perhaps they're doing away with that already. The distance between Mercury here shows this person requires a bit of freedom of isolation. As I say, they're a bit of an introvert. And the low set Mercury is as a result of what occurred when they were younger, and likely what's also occurred recently as well. Apollo is our ability to show off our talents to the world. If I had to summarize it, and this person has kind of in some way been deprived of that through their experiences. And the seventh point I wanted to mention here is quite a prominent, low-hanging, angular Pluto mount here, and it's really, it stands out to me when I look at this palm. The first thing I noticed really was this, but I didn't want to get into it straight away. So Pluto here is this sort of extra bank of lunar, this imagination, um, ideas. It's how we use our creativity, I suppose. It's ancestral memories. It's memories from a past life, potentially. And with a fate line that kind of runs um, from Pluto here, it could be that this person is sort of reliving, re-experiencing um, things from a past life. It's just such a prominent Pluto. This part of this person, perhaps holding grudges, holding on to the past, is very prominent with this person. And I think that this is something that this person is going to have to work through. And I actually feel that in order to work through their emotions, a kind of therapy for this person would be to meditate, or at least spend a lot of time by water, calm, or at least, smooth running water, lakes. I think this will help ground this person. I think it sounds a bit strange, but I do think that this will help this person work through the very difficult things that they've been through. And it is said that, Pluto, it's this sort of place of the memories of our descendants. And sometimes when we have such a strong heel of Pluto like this, especially with a fate line that comes from it, it can show us that we are kind of bound by the experiences that we've had in a past life, or the experiences and memories of our ancestors. We've inherited some of those, and we use those experiences unconsciously in day-to-day living. And the last point I wanted to mention were these marriage lines here. This is the eighth point I wanted to mention. And it's a tricky one for me because I only have the left hand here. This is how we feel. This is what's going on internally for this person. It does show some sort of a picture of this person's life, past, present, and future, but more internally, how this person is affected psychologically and emotionally. On a dermatoglyphics level, this person has a good sense of humor despite everything they've been through. Just a side note. But the marriage line here that kind of appears like a sort of ring of Mercury, if you will, has been said to be a sign of someone who is widowed, a widower. Sorry, so someone who they've outlived their partner, which is why I said earlier perhaps this person's spouse has died. And there is what appears to be a money line here attached to this union. So I'm wondering if this person inherited. There you go. There's a bit of it. There's an inheritance line. Some money from this divorce in some way. And you can see here also, notice the heart line here. You've got this powerful line looking backwards towards Mercury, towards this relationship. And at the same time, this disappointment here. This disappointment is the only real word I can use because it covers a lot of things. It's the heart leaning towards the head, asking the head for logic at this time where it's a very traumatic, very emotionally disturbing experience, and you kind of need another organ to help for support. And that's what the heart line does. It asks the head for help. And it could actually be relaying to an earlier time in life, but there is also this time here as well, which, as I say, late 20s, early 30s, where I believe this person separated from their husband in whatever fashion, and it's now living a new chapter of their lives. So yeah, for me, this is a very difficult read because there's just so much going on here. I find many lined hands an incredibly difficult read, and there's just lots of variables and factors at play here with, you know, influences from the family, the relationship they've been in, and the experiences they've been through. So I would advise this person try to look at the bigger picture. When something becomes too much, when it feels unbearable, try to step back from that feeling and look at it impartially. Look at the situation impartially. Take a deep breath. Imagine a deep expanse of water. Stand by a lake. Think things through. Are there other things at play? Are there other factors that come into it? What can help you in that situation? What can solve it? Who else is involved? What else is involved? Have a look at the whole picture before beating yourself up, before damaging yourself, worrying yourself silly, hurting yourself in this way. The other advice I would give is use water as a way of grounding yourself. A placid lake is in some ways one of the best tools we have for self-therapy. Depends on the person, depends on the circumstance, but certainly for you, water is an excellent source of therapy, a way to work through the difficulties that you've been through, the shocking difficulties that there may well be a delayed reaction towards, and this will help you work through these things. I also recommend therapy and counseling as well. I think that might well help you, but as we can only really help ourselves, and this is what palmistry shows us time and time again. We have to want this help. We have to want to work through things ourselves and do things for ourselves, with ourselves. Although there may not be another relationship for you around the corner, I believe that you'll actually be happier off this way, and at this time you do need some freedom of isolation to work through and process the things you've been through. There's a strong attachment, a strong bond with the mother, as seen here by the way the loyalty line reaches towards the matriarch line like this, which is excellent, and I'm really pleased to see such a positive sign. But at the same time, there is also perhaps an over-dependency and an inability to seize opportunities, to take the plunge, and perhaps new experiences away from what feels comfortable and safe and secure will actually do this person some good in the long run, because perhaps they needed more independence when they were younger but couldn't for circumstantial reasons. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you got a lot out of this video. It's interesting for me because sometimes when I first look at a palm, I think, I don't know what the hell I'm going to say here, and then one thing leads to another, and I've made a 35-minute video. So thanks for watching, and please please subscribe. If you've got any comments about my reading here, if you disagree, or if you've got any sort of add-on, follow-on points, I really appreciate all of your feedback, all of your comments. It's humbling, and I thank you all for all the time that you're giving my content, and I'm really pleased that you're getting some value out of it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.